Consider three situations. A student in Delhi chooses arts over science. A journalist is jailed for exposing corruption. A child has a legal right to education, but no physical school exists in their village. The first scenario represents liberty as choice, an agent making a free selection between options. In the second scenario, the choice exists, but an external constraint blocks the path. Liberty is denied by the interference of the state. The third scenario reveals a lack of enabling conditions. The legal right is present, but the physical absence of the school makes that right illusory. These examples show that genuine liberty combines three specific aspects: the ability to choose, the absence of barriers, and the presence of enabling conditions. True liberty exists at the exact intersection of these factors. It is the actualized capacity to exercise rights rather than mere legal acknowledgement. This capacity functions across three specific domains. Civil liberty secures personal dignity and autonomy. When B.R. Ambedkar embedded these protections in the Indian Constitution, he created a legal shield for marginalized communities against arbitrary state action. Political liberty enables self-rule. It is the mechanism that ensures accountability through voting, debate, and the prevention of power concentration. Economic liberty allows individuals to choose their activities and access resources without undue restraint, requiring fair opportunities alongside freedom from interference. These domains reinforce each other in practice. The right to protest functions as a civil liberty of assembly and a political liberty of participation at the same time. Similarly, forming trade unions reflects an economic right for workers and a political tool to influence policy. These liberties form an interconnected system. Placing a limit on one domain often weakens the underlying capacity of the other two. The modern definition of liberty evolved from a focus on survival. Before modern governments, thinkers imagined a state of nature defined by total, violent freedom. In 1651, Thomas Hobbes defined liberty as the absence of external constraints. In his framework, liberty is found in the silence of the law, the areas where the state does not act. Hobbes argued that citizens traded their violent, absolute freedom to a sovereign authority in exchange for security. Liberty, under a ruler, existed only where the law was silent. John Locke pivoted this logic in 1689, arguing that humans possess natural rights to life, liberty, and property that no government can legitimately take away. Locke clarified that true liberty functions within natural law. Stealing is not an exercise of freedom because it violates the natural rights of another person. These classical theories defined liberty in the negative. The goal was to protect the individual from physical interference and secure basic survival. By 1762, Jean-Jacques Rousseau argued that the structures of society actually corrupt natural freedom through inequality and dependence. Rousseau introduced the general will, proposing that true freedom exists when citizens follow laws they helped create. This created the paradox of being forced to be free. In this view, actions like paying taxes support public goods, harmonizing individual interests with the common good. The 19th century individualist movement, led by John Stuart Mill, challenged this collective priority. In his 1859 Harm Principle, Mill argued that the state can only legitimately restrict freedom to prevent harm to others. Mill separated self-regarding actions, like personal lifestyle, from other regarding actions that affect the community.
Only the latter could be subject to restriction. Political theory shifted from establishing basic order to negotiating the precise boundary between individual expression and collective societal health. Isaiah Berlin formalized this split in 1958, defining negative liberty as the absence of interference and positive liberty as self-direction. He warned that focusing on positive liberty could lead to state paternalism, where government dictates what is best. Gerald McCallum unified this debate in 1967, proposing liberty as a triadic relation. An agent is free from an obstacle to reach a goal. For example, a woman is free from legal restrictions to contest an election. Karl Marx offered a deeper critique, arguing that legal rights often mask economic exploitation. Here, the legal freedom to own property masks the reality of wage slavery. Workers have no choice but to sell their labor to survive. Herbert Marcuse expanded this to the psychological level, introducing the concept of one-dimensionality. Marcuse argued that consumerism creates a superficial liberty. Choosing between commercial products feels like freedom, but it ignores the social manipulation shaping those very choices. These critiques demonstrate that mere non-interference is insufficient if systemic economic exploitation dictates and limits the actual choices available to the individual. Modern political philosophy maps these competing priorities on a spectrum of state intervention and moral focus. John Rawls argued that basic liberties must be protected, with inequalities permitted only if they benefit the least advantaged. Robert Nozick challenged this by defending the minimal state, viewing wealth redistribution as forced labor. Meanwhile, Hayek and Milton Friedman prioritized economic freedom, arguing that spontaneous market order creates more progress than central planning. Amartya Sen and Joseph Raz shifted the focus back to capabilities and moral autonomy. Sen's 1999 framework emphasizes that freedom is meaningless without the health and education required to act on opportunities. This perspective links liberty to the expansion of human capabilities. It suggests the state must create the conditions necessary for individuals to lead fulfilling lives. Modern democracies exist within a structural tension between personal freedom and fair opportunity. Some thinkers view liberty and equality as mutually reinforcing, where a level playing field enhances the freedom of all citizens. Others, like Hayek and Berlin, warn enforcing equality requires state interventions restricting individual choice. This conflict is evident in economic policy. A high earner has the negative liberty to keep their wealth, while equality requires taxing that wealth to support the poor. Social policies like affirmative action provide opportunities for disadvantaged groups, but by design, they limit the choices available to others. Functional democracies maintain an equilibrium between these two forces, preventing extreme disparities while protecting individual choice. The 1941 Atlantic Charter provides a historical milestone, listing 4 essential freedoms. Freedom of speech and religion represent classical liberties focused on the absence of state interference. Freedom from want and fear represent modern, positive liberties, requiring an enabling state to secure. The definition of liberty evolves through a continuous dialectical project. It involves the removal of external barriers alongside the active construction of human capabilities.